Hold on tight, almost there.
I'm good, dear. This rain.
We're a good team.
The best.
The rain comes down hard, slanting across the sole crosswalk like it means to push her back, and for one terrifying second, Lilian loses her grip. Her father's weight shifts in the wheelchair, the curb slick beneath the tires, traffic lights flashing red like warnings she doesn't have time to read. Her palms burn, her breath stutters, the world narrows to the sound of rain hitting asphalt and the quiet, humbling fear that if she lets go now, everything she loves will fall forward into the street. A black sedan screeches to a halt inches away. The driver's door opens fast. A man steps out into the rain like it owes him an apology, coat already soaked, eyes sharp and assessing in a way that makes Lilian's chest tighten for reasons that have nothing to do with fear. He takes in the scene in one sweep, her shaking hands, the frail older man in the chair, the danger, and then he's there, steadying the wheelchair with one hand, gripping the curb rail with the other, strength-controlled and absolute. Their eyes meet. Something impossible stirs in his chest, an awareness so sudden it borders on pain. Not desire alone, not sympathy. Something deeper, older, a recognition that makes no sense and refuses to leave. "Easy," he says, voice low, calm, anchoring. "I've got him." Lilian doesn't know why her throat closes at the sound. She only knows that when the chair is safely on the sidewalk and the rain keeps falling, she's still staring at him like the world just shifted under her feet. This is the moment everything changes. Welcome to Afro Korea Stories by Yem Besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Lilian was not born in this city of glass towers and neon nights. Her first memories, if they can be called that, are fragments stitched together from stories told softly at bedtime. A red earth village, warm arms, a lullaby sung in a language she never learned to speak. She was 1 year old when a Korean couple held her for the first time in a crowded orphanage office, her small fingers curling instinctively into the man's jacket as if she already knew he would not let go. They named her Hope, but over time, as she grew, as Korean teachers struggled with her African name, and neighbors offered suggestions meant kindly but landed heavy, she chose Lilian for herself. Soft, strong, something that felt like both worlds could live inside it. Her mother, because that is what she was from the first bottle warmed in a Seoul apartment kitchen, died when Lilian was 12. A sudden illness, a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and loss. Lilian remembers sitting very still, holding her mother's hand, watching her father's shoulders cave inward as if gravity had finally found him. After the funeral, it was just the two of them. He never remarried, never explained why. He learned how to braid hair badly and pack lunches carefully and attend school meetings where other parents stared too long. He worked until his back hurt and his eyes dimmed, until Lilian was old enough to notice the way he rubbed his chest when he thought she wasn't looking. He carried her first, on his shoulders, through festivals, in his arms when nightmares woke her, through a world that did not always understand them. Now, decades later, she carries him. The doctor says it gently, as if softness can change facts. Degenerative, progressive, time-limited. Lilian nods, asks practical questions, takes notes. She does not cry until she is alone in the stairwell, knuckles pressed to her mouth, breath breaking in silent, furious gasps. She leaves her job at the community center without regret, moves them into a smaller apartment closer to the hospital, learns the rhythm of medications and appointments and nights where sleep comes only in fragments. She is capable. She has always been. What she is not prepared for is the man from the rain. His name is Lee Ji-hyun, and Seoul knows it well, CEO, strategist, untouchable, a man whose presence shifts rooms and whose absence is noticed just as sharply. He runs a private medical technology firm that donates millions publicly and moves far more quietly behind closed doors. Newspapers call him brilliant, rivals call him ruthless. No one calls him kind, until he keeps showing up. The first time is coincidence. The second time is explanation. His company partners with the hospital, he says, voice smooth, eyes unreadable. The third time, Lilian stops believing in chance. She notices the way his gaze softens only when it lands on her father, the way he kneels to speak at eye level, never rushed, the way his attention snaps unhidden and sharp when a nurse is careless with a wheelchair break. Why do you keep helping us? Lilian asks one evening, rain replaced by the hush of hospital corridors. Ji-hyun considers her for a beat too long. Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it, he says finally. It is not an answer, but it is honest. The awakening inside him does not fade. It deepens. He watches Lilian move through exhaustion with quiet grace, sees the strength in the set of her shoulders, the tenderness in the way she wipes her father's mouth after soup. He feels something dangerously close to reverence and something far more possessive than he wants to admit. She is not fragile. She is formidable, and she is carrying the weight of a love that taught her how to survive. Lilian feels it too. The pull, the heat of awareness when he stands too close, the way silence stretches tight between them. It frightens her, not because of him, but because she does not have space in her life for want. Love already owns every breath she has. When Ji-hyun offers help, private care, resources, things she cannot afford, she refuses. When he insists, she snaps. When he steps back, something in her aches anyway. The tension coils, unspoken and undeniable, threading through hospital rooms and late-night phone calls and moments where their hands brush and neither pulls away fast enough. Danger does not announce itself loudly. It arrives quietly in a missed appointment, a file altered, a rival corporation circling too close. Ji-hyun recognizes the signs immediately. Someone is moving against him, and by extension against anyone near him, including Lilian. He tries to distance himself. She notices, she always notices. And when her father collapses one night, alarms, screaming, Ji-hyun is already there, pulling strings, making calls, standing between her and a system that would swallow her whole. That is when Lilian understands the truth she has been resisting. She is no longer alone in carrying him. And loving Ji-hyun may cost her everything she has left, but losing him might cost even more. The night stretches on, unresolved, rain beginning again outside the windows as two lives already shaped by sacrifice edge closer to a choice that will change the meaning of family, love, and forever. Morning arrives without mercy. Seoul wakes sharp and bright, sunlight slicing through hospital blinds like it has no patience for grief or exhaustion. Lilian stands at the sink in the public restroom, splashing cold water on her face, watching herself in the mirror until she recognizes the woman staring back. Curvy lines softened by stress, deep brown skin dulled by sleepless nights, eyes too old for her age, but steady, always steady. Her phone buzzes, Ji-hyun. She lets it ring once, twice, answers on the third, breath measured. Yes? I'm downstairs, he says, no greeting, no explanation. His voice carries restraint stretched thin. Your father's tests came back. I need to talk to you. Something in his tone tightens her chest. You could have called. I didn't want this conversation over a phone. She closes her eyes, nods to no one. I'll be there. The elevator ride down is a compact eternity. When the doors open, she spots him immediately, dark suit immaculate despite the night spent awake, hair pushed back in a way that suggests impatience rather than vanity. He looks out of place among families clutching paper cups of coffee and hope. Too controlled, too powerful, too much. They move to a quiet corner. He hands her the file without ceremony. There's a trial option, experimental. My company helped fund it. Her fingers still. Helped fund, she repeats. Yes. And you're telling me because I won't push it on you, he says evenly. But you deserve to know it exists. She scans the pages, words blur, risk percentages, side effects, a sliver of possibility sharp enough to cut. When she looks up, her eyes shine, not with tears, but with something close to anger. Is this why you're here? She asks. Because you think you can fix this? His jaw tightens. I think I can help. You don't get to decide that, she snaps. This isn't a boardroom negotiation. Silence stretches, taut and dangerous. I know, he says quietly. That's why I'm asking. The fight drains out of her in a rush that leaves her dizzy. She turns away, breath shaking. He doesn't touch her. The restraint is deliberate and it costs him. I need time, she says. You have it. She almost laughs. Time. The one thing none of them have enough of. By the end of the week, routines shift. Ji-hyun arranges for a specialist consultation, not as a savior, but as an option. Lilian attends every meeting, asks sharper questions than anyone expects. Doctors respect her, nurses listen. Ji-hyun watches it all with something dangerously close to admiration. He also watches the way other men look at her. The physical therapist lingers too long. A visiting professor from the community center stops by with flowers. Innocent, harmless. Ji-hyun's control fractures anyway. It happens in the cafeteria. Lilian laughs, really laughs, for the first time in weeks, head tipped back, shoulders loosening. The sound hits him like a punch. He sees the man across from her, lean in, sees Lilian's hand on the table between them, relaxed. Jealousy is not new to him. This is something else, sharp, possessive, a low burn that demands action. He joins them without invitation, presence cutting through the space like a blade. Hope I'm not interrupting. Lilian stiffens. Ji-hyun. The other man stands, startled. Introductions are brief, polite, tense. Ji-hyun's hand lands on the back of Lilian's chair. Too familiar, too claiming. He feels her inhale, feels the question in it. He doesn't move his hand. The message is clear, to the room, to himself. Later in the hallway, she rounds on him. You don't get to do that. Do what? Mark territory, she says, voice low but fierce. I'm not something you own. He steps closer, controlled heat in his gaze. I know exactly what you are. And what's that? Someone I don't want to lose. The words land between them, heavy and unfinished. She looks away first. That night, she dreams of carrying weight she can't set down and waking to hands steadying her from behind. Days blur. Test results inch forward. Decisions loom. The experimental trial hovers like a storm cloud, hopeful, terrifying. Ji-hyun pulls back, intentionally, fewer visits, shorter calls. He convinces himself it's protection. Distance will keep her safe from the enemies circling him. From the darkness he lives with daily, Lilian feels the absence like a bruise. She doesn't chase him, she doesn't beg. She focuses on her father, on paperwork, on breathing through fear. But at night, alone, she presses her palm to her chest and admits the truth she's been avoiding. She wants him. The danger escalates quietly, a file goes missing. A nurse is reassigned without notice. Ji-hyun recognizes the pattern too late. It breaks open one evening when Lilian arrives to find her father's room empty. Panic detonates. She runs, heart pounding, demanding answers. Staff scramble, security footage loops. Someone has manipulated access. Her phone rings. Unknown number. Her blood runs cold. Ji-hyun's voice comes through, tight with fury, barely leashed. He's with me. He's safe. Relief crashes through her so hard she nearly sinks to the floor. Where are you? On my way to you, listen to me carefully. A pause, controlled breathing. This isn't random. Someone is testing boundaries. I should have moved faster. She swallows. I don't care about that. Just bring him back. I will, he says, and Lilian, when I do, things change. The car ride back is silent except for her father's shallow breathing. Lilian holds his hand, grounding herself in the warmth of his skin. Ji-hyun drives like a man with no margin for error. At the apartment door, she turns to him, eyes blazing with fear and something raw. You don't get to disappear on me, she says, not after this. I was trying to keep you out of my war. I didn't ask for protection, she says. I asked for honesty. He steps closer. Too close. Rain begins again outside, echoing their first collision. If I let you in, he says, voice low and dangerous, you don't get halfway. You don't get safety without cost. She meets his gaze, unflinching. Neither do you. The air between them tightens, electric and breathless, the kind of moment that bends futures. He doesn't touch her, not yet, but something irrevocable has shifted, and neither of them is walking away. That night does not end cleanly. It stretches, frays, tightens again. Lilian settles her father into bed with practiced care, murmuring reassurances, smoothing his thinning hair the way he once smoothed hers. He drifts to sleep with her name on his lips. When she steps back into the living room, Ji-hyun is still there, jacket draped over a chair, sleeves rolled up, tension etched into the lines of his forearms as he stands by the window watching the city like it's an enemy he's memorized too well. She closes the door quietly. Neither of them speaks at first. Silence thickens, charged and waiting. "You were right," he says at last, not turning. "About honesty." She crosses her arms, grounding herself. "That's not an apology. It's the beginning of one." He faces her then, eyes dark, controlled to the edge of fracture. "Someone is pressuring my company. They used the hospital to get to me. I underestimated how close they were willing to come to you." Her breath hitches. "So what now? Now I stop pretending I can keep you safe by staying away." The admission lands heavy. She takes a step closer, then another. "You don't get to decide alone anymore." A beat. Then he nods. "Once." "Agreed." The shift is subtle but seismic, a partnership forged not in comfort but in shared risk. They sit at the small kitchen table, paperwork spread out, plans spoken in low voices. Ji-hyun explains the trial, the safeguards he's already put in place, the quiet moves he's making to expose the threat. Lilian listens, questions sharp, mind working. She catches inconsistencies, suggests alternatives. He watches her with a mix of surprise and something deeper, respect, unguarded. Hours pass unnoticed. It's close to dawn when exhaustion finally catches her. She sways slightly when she stands, and his hand comes out instinctively, steadying her elbow. The contact is brief, necessary. Neither lets go. The world narrows to the space between them, her breath, his warmth, the echo of everything unspoken. "This is a bad idea," she whispers, though she doesn't pull away. He leans in, forehead resting against hers, restraint trembling. "Tell me to stop." She doesn't. The kiss is not gentle, it's not rushed either. It's the collision of held breath and breaking walls, of months compressed into one desperate moment. His hand slides to her waist like it's always belonged there. She grips his shirt, grounding herself in the reality of him. When it deepens, when the air thins and the heat sharpens into something that could consume them both, he pulls back first, breathing hard, eyes searching hers. "If we cross this line," he says roughly, "there's no clean exit." She swallows, heart pounding. "I'm not looking for one." The rest fades to black, not because it lacks intensity, but because what happens next belongs only to them. Shared breaths, trembling hands, a surrender that feels less like loss and more like coming home to a truth long denied. Morning arrives quietly. Lilian wakes wrapped in warmth she doesn't yet recognize as hers. Ji-hyun lies beside her, one arm curved around her waist like a promise he's already decided to keep. For one fragile moment, peace settles. Then reality presses back in. Her phone buzzes on the nightstand, unknown number. She answers, dread coiling instantly. A voice slips through, smooth and amused. "You should tell Mr. Lee that leverage works both ways." The line goes dead. Ji-hyun is awake immediately. He doesn't ask. He reads it in her face, fury igniting cold and lethal. They move fast, security doubled, plans adjusted. Lilian refuses to be sidelined. "If they're watching me," she says, "then I see things you don't." Against every instinct he has, he agrees. The trial decision cannot wait. Her father's condition dips, then stabilizes, then dips again. The doctors warn of narrowing windows. Lilian sits at his bedside, holding his hand, whispering stories of her childhood, of scraped knees and first report cards, of the way he carried her on his back through snow. "You were my miracle," he murmurs weakly. "Now let me be yours." The consent comes with tears and terror and a hope so fierce it hurts. The betrayal reveals itself 2 days later. A trusted board member, a silent partner. The enemy isn't outside, it's seated comfortably at Ji-hyun's table, smiling through quarterly reports. Confrontation is swift and ruthless. Evidence laid bare. Accounts frozen. Police alerted. But the retaliation comes anyway. The attack isn't loud, it's surgical. The night Lilian is followed, she knows before she sees them. She doesn't panic. She ducks into a crowded street, calls Ji-hyun, keeps moving. When a hand grabs her arm, she reacts, sharp, decisive, breaking free long enough for security to intercept. Ji-hyun arrives seconds later, fury incandescent. He pulls her into his arms without care for witnesses, holding her like the world tried and failed to take her away. "I told you I wouldn't disappear." She breathes into his chest. He presses his forehead to hers, voice breaking for the first time. "I can't lose you." "You won't," she says, "but we end this together." The climax comes in layers: legal, corporate, personal. The enemy exposed publicly, reputation in ruins. The threat dissolves under scrutiny it can't survive. The trial begins. Weeks crawl. Hope rises, falters, steadies again. Lilian lives between hospital rooms and boardrooms, between exhaustion and fierce determination. Ji-hyun is always there, silent when needed, unyielding when it matters. The day her father wakes clearer than he has in months, squeezes her hand with strength that brings her to her knees. She laughs and cries at once. "I told you," he whispers, "you'd carry me through." Time moves forward at last. The future they build is not quiet, but it is certain. Ji-hyun makes a public claim, not with spectacle, but with presence. Lilian at his side, no hiding, no half measures. The proposal comes simply, on a hospital rooftop at sunset. A ring pressed into her palm, his voice steady and sure. "Choose me," he says, "for every season." She doesn't hesitate. "I already have." The final image is of three figures: an older man smiling from a wheelchair, a woman standing tall and radiant, a man beside her whose power finally bows to love. Once, he carried her. Now, she carries him. And together, they carry forever. Life does not slow after the yes. It accelerates, reshaping itself around new gravity. The engagement is not announced with fireworks or press releases, but Seoul notices anyway. Ji-hyun does not hide Lilian. He brings her into rooms where men once spoke over her future without knowing her name. He introduces her not as a charity case, not as a story, but as his partner. The word settles into place with startling ease. She earns the respect on her own. In meetings, she listens more than she speaks until she speaks, and then the room stills. She asks questions that expose weak assumptions. She remembers names. She reads contracts twice. People begin to look to her before they realize they are doing it. Ji-hyun watches, undone in a way power never managed to accomplish. At home, the apartment shifts again. Medical equipment gives way to lighter furniture. Windows open more often. Her father grows stronger slowly, stubbornly, measuring progress in steps and jokes and the way he insists on pouring his own tea even when his hands shake. He watches Ji-hyun carefully. One afternoon, while Lilian is out buying groceries, he asks Ji-hyun to sit. "You love her," he says, not as a question. Ji-hyun bows his head slightly. "With everything I am." "That's dangerous," the older man says gently. "Yes." A pause, then a soft laugh. "Good. She was never meant for a small life." The wedding is intimate, a rooftop overlooking the river at dusk. No excess, just intention. Lilian walks alone, head high, shoulders bare, radiant in a dress that moves when she does. Ji-hyun waits for her like a man who has finally reached the only thing that ever mattered. Their vows are simple, devastating in their honesty. When he slips the ring onto her finger, she squeezes his hand once, grounding him, reminding him that this is real, chosen, earned. Later, when the music softens and the city hums below them, Lilian's father watches them dance, slow, close, foreheads touching, and feels the quiet relief of knowing the circle has held. Months pass, seasons turn. The call comes on an ordinary morning. Lilian stands in the kitchen, sunlight warming her skin, when the world tilts gently instead of shattering. She sits down hard, laughing through tears she doesn't yet understand. Ji-hyun knows before she speaks. "Hey," she says softly, "we're going to need a bigger apartment." For a moment, the man who once controlled empires cannot breathe. Then he gathers her into his arms, laughter breaking free, reverent and disbelieving. He presses his lips to her hair, her temple, her mouth, as if to memorize this version of happiness. The news is shared carefully, joy layered with caution. Her father's hands shake when he rests them over Lilian's stomach, eyes shining. Life keeps choosing us, he murmurs. The final image is not dramatic, it is quiet. Lilian stands by the window one evening, Ji-hyun behind her, arms wrapped around her, the city glowing beyond the glass. Her father sleeps peacefully in the next room. Her future moves inside her, steady and sure. She leans back into the man who loves her, who saw her strength before she ever let him touch it. Once, he carried her. Now she carries him. And together they carry a life built not from blood alone, but from choice, sacrifice, and love that never let go. The days after the news settle into a rhythm that feels both fragile and indestructible. Lilian learns her body again, its new boundaries, its quiet signals. Ji-hyun learns patience in ways power never taught him. He attends appointments without speaking unless spoken to, holds her bag, memorizes schedules, and pretends he isn't terrified every time a doctor pauses before finishing a sentence. He is softer now. Not weaker, never that, but tempered. The sharp edges of his world bend around her without breaking. They move into a sunlit apartment overlooking the river. Not the tallest building, not the most expensive, just one with space to breathe and windows wide enough for mornings to arrive gently. Lilian chooses the furniture. Plants appear in every corner, books pile up on the floor before shelves are installed. Her father insists on helping even when his legs protest. He claims the armchair by the window as his throne, dispensing commentary on everything from tea strength to Ji-hyun's inability to cook rice properly. "You married well," he tells Lilian one evening, deadpan. Ji-hyun bows from the kitchen. "I'm still learning." "So, is everyone worth keeping?" the older man replies. The world outside does not stop testing them. There are whispers about Ji-hyun's past, about Lilian's place beside him, about a woman who does not fit the image some expected. She hears them. She chooses which ones matter. When a reporter asks how it feels to marry into power, she smiles calmly. "I didn't marry power," she says. "I married a man." The clip goes viral. Ji-hyun watches it alone in his office, something tight in his chest finally loosening. The pregnancy progresses slowly, carefully. Lilian remains active, working with community organizations, consulting quietly for Ji-hyun's foundation, advocating for cross-cultural adoption support in ways that surprise even her. She stands on stages without fear. She speaks with clarity earned through lived experience. People listen. One afternoon, she collapses, not dramatically, not violently, just dizziness, a scare, a reminder that even strength has limits. Ji-hyun does not leave the hospital room for hours. He sits beside her bed, hand wrapped around hers, forehead pressed to her knuckles. "I can't do this without you," he says into her skin, voice stripped bare. She squeezes his hand. "You don't have to." The birth comes on a rainy night, echoing the moment they met. Long hours, sharp breaths, Ji-hyun's shirt soaked with sweat and tears and something like prayer. When the cry finally breaks the air, raw and undeniable, he sobs openly, the sound torn from somewhere deep and unguarded. Lilian laughs through exhaustion, tears sliding into her hair. Her father meets the baby the next morning. He holds the small, warm weight with reverent care, eyes shining as he looks from child to daughter to son-in-law. "You see," he murmurs, "love keeps multiplying." Years pass, not in a rush, but with purpose. Her father grows older, slower, still sharp, still present. On his final morning, sunlight spills across the room, just as it always has. Lilian sits beside him, holding his hand. Ji-hyun stands quietly behind her, anchoring her without intruding. "You carried me so well," he whispers to her, breath shallow but peaceful. "Now let yourself be carried too." When he goes, it is gentle. Grief comes like an ocean, deep, relentless, but not empty. It is full of memory, of gratitude, of a love that shaped generations. At the memorial, Lilian speaks without notes. Her voice does not break. "He chose me," she says simply, "and because of that choice, I learned how to choose others, how to love without limits." Ji-hyun's hand finds hers in the silence that follows. The final image lingers. A child runs across the apartment floor, laughter bright. Lilian watches from the kitchen, one hand resting on Ji-hyun's arm. The city glows beyond the window, vast and alive. Once, a man carried a child who was not his by blood, but was his by heart. Now that child stands surrounded by the life she built, love chosen again and again, sacrifice returned with abundance, and nothing has ever been more powerful than that. The years soften around them, not by erasing what hurt, but by giving it meaning. Lilian learns that grief does not shrink love, it expands it. On quiet mornings, she still reaches for the phone to call her father before remembering she no longer needs to. He is everywhere already, in the way she folds towels with care, in the patience she offers her child, in the instinct to stand between harm and the people she loves without being asked. Ji-hyun never rushes her healing. He understands now that love is not a rescue, but a witness. He sits with her on anniversaries that ache. He listens when she tells stories he's heard 100 times before. He lets her be strong and lets her fall apart, and in doing so, he becomes more than powerful. He becomes safe. Their child grows surrounded by languages, laughter, and photographs lining the walls. One picture sits at the center of them all, a younger Lilian on her father's shoulders, both of them laughing at something just out of frame. Visitors always pause there. Something about it draws people in. "Who's that?" their child asks one afternoon, pointing. Lilian kneels, heart steady. "That's the man who taught me how to love." Ji-hyun watches from the doorway, eyes warm, understanding at last that he is not competing with a ghost. He is continuing a legacy. Life tests them again, as it always does. Markets shift. Enemies try quietly and fail loudly. Ji-hyun steps back from the sharpest edges of his empire, reshaping it into something that builds more than it takes. Lilian leads initiatives that open doors for children like she once was, children who need one brave yes to change everything. On a crisp autumn evening, they return to the hospital rooftop where he once asked her to choose him. The city spreads below them, lights flickering like a constellation they helped redraw. "I used to think love was something you earned by winning," Ji-hyun says, voice thoughtful. "Then I met you." She smiles softly. And I learned love is something you prove by staying." She leans into him, fitting perfectly, as if the world shaped itself around this moment long ago. The circle closes not with spectacle, but with certainty. Once, a Korean man chose an African child and carried her through a world that did not always understand them. Now that child, grown, strong, unwavering, stands with the man she chose, carrying him through the seasons of life, just as he once carried her heart when it was still learning how to beat. Love does not always arrive as romance. Sometimes it arrives as a decision. Sometimes it arrives as sacrifice. Sometimes it arrives as a hand that refuses to let go. And when it does, it changes everything. Forever. The end